Hey, how's it going? Thank you for tuning in. This is your boy Greg Dawson, aka Boris Chestnut. I'm with my family. We're here talking about cannabis and pleasure. And so we're going to get this thing kicked off. We're going to focus on sex, right? Pleasure is a general term for a lot of things. But I brought two friends with me, and we have vulnerable conversations about sex, and we're all cannabis enthusiasts, if you will. And whether we're working in the field directly, or this is medically, or this is recreationally, we do this, So, and I think it is definitely important that we see Black faces doing it, Black faces that are professional and understand what the healthy aspects of it are. We all know, or mostly know, what the unhealthy aspects look like. We've been hearing about it for years, even before we even thought about it. So, without further ado, I want to introduce my guests, and then we'll go right into the actual conversation, and we'll get everything done. And so, Josh, talk to us. Who are you, and why are you here?
What's up? Hey, Greg, I appreciate you for getting us on the show. So my name is Joshua Moore. I am a medical doctor. I'm a general surgeon by training. I've been helping people get certified for medical cannabis for a little bit over a year now. I've been a cannabis enthusiast for quite some time. Maybe that'll come out at some point during this podcast, but um, yeah, I'm really interested in the science behind cannabis. It's a fascinating field, and especially as it relates to pleasure, and just overall well-being. So I'm happy to have this conversation. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you for stopping by, man. I appreciate that as well.
Absolutely.
Dr. Dorian, who are you, and why are you here?
Hello, I am Dorian Richardson. I am a naturopathic physician. I am based in Arizona. I actually specialize in sexual and reproductive health. I too am a cannabis enthusiast. Um, I'm not going to calculate the years because one, I'm not going to age myself. And then that's just a lot of math. We're not doing all of that today. I also do certifications for the medical marijuana program here. I think I've probably been doing that for like 2 years part time. But I've actually probably within the last year started looking more into like Dr. Josh was saying, the science of it, and just amazed at how it works and how it affects the body and the actual medical benefits and the health properties of marijuana. So I'm pretty excited to have this conversation, especially because the topic is pleasure, and that's right up my alley. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. And again, my name is Greg Dawson. I am a therapist, sex therapist, working out of the state of Texas. Loving doing education talks on stuff I know about, even stuff I don't. I like to learn from my guests. I like to learn just by having these vulnerable conversations, throwing stuff on the table, and seeing how we can fix that puzzle and make it look beautiful. And that's a little bit of what we're doing here, but we do have people that know what they're talking about here, and we are going to still make this puzzle look beautiful. And so I want to talk about the this is this is the first of its showing for Under Compassion, and I want to get from my friends where would you like to see these conversations go, whether you're here on certain days or not, as far as expectations with cannabis and pleasure. Where would you like to see this combo go? And are there any barriers you'd like to see it break? And where would you like to see things improve along the way as we continue to have these conversations as they are?
Dr. Richardson, you
I
want to
think,
go?
yeah, I
I'm
think
gonna
for me,
defer to ladies.
I definitely want to discuss like I said, the medical benefits.
Sure.
Working in the sexual and reproductive realm, we see a lot of barriers to pleasure, and there's actual physical and physiologically things going on with the body that we try to correct. And so, if there's a way that we could use cannabis in that realm and be able to make some of those corrections, that'd be a great conversation. Um, when it comes to pleasure, I think just in general, I just like to see all walls come down where we can just have a comfortable conversation. People aren't antsy. People aren't like, oh my God, I can't believe they're saying this. Just where it becomes a part of our everyday life. Pleasure is a part of who you are and a part of your life, and it should be incorporated in many ways. And so also just having these talks over and over again just to get comfortable with being able to have these talks, I think is going to be major in many ways.
Agreed. What about you, Dr. Josh?
So, the pleasure space is actually, from the medical side of things, it's a huge part of the medical industry. There's billions of dollars that are spent on pills, mostly for men, to help with improving sexual performance. And what I'd like to see, especially as it ties into cannabis, is I'd like to see cannabis be tied into this real legitimate medical research. I'd like to find out how we can support both men and women in reaching their sexual desires, because that's a big part of health, sexual wellness. And I'd also like to see an emphasis more on female sexual health. There's a lot of there's a lot of conditions that make it difficult for some men, but mostly women, to enjoy sex. And so sometimes the conversation isn't always going to be about how to make someone who is how to make your sex go from good to great. But sometimes it's important to think about people who have a lot of barriers to having enjoyable sex in the first place, and helping them to experience those things as well. And so I think we need a lot more research. We need a lot more conversations. We need to continue this conversation going.
Absolutely. And hopefully, I'm going to echo some of the things that both of you said. I too want this to be a normal conversation, a normalized conversation across the board. I'm on Clubhouse almost every day, not always participating, but listening. And a few of my favorite shows rarely have the pleasure part of it with cannabis. And that's unfortunate, because much of kind of like both of you said, it helps you get it within your body. It brings along awareness. If you do it in moderation, you can find that you don't have to be extra zooted just to have pleasurable sex. And, I grew up thinking, oh, I got to have Dro or whatever Kush. And if I don't have that, the sex is going to be whack. But you can have almost to the level of Reggie and still have enjoyable sex. Hopefully, it don't give you the headache. That's not going to make it enjoyable. But if we smoke in moderation, that gives us all the things that we want and need, or most of them, in sex. And so, hopefully, these conversations bring around education that's not really getting told or being had in a lot of our social circles. And hopefully, this can normalize, that this is something that black people can use, and it's not a tool to send us to jail or to do anything that we kind of get the whole stigma of this is a bad plant and these are bad people using it. I want people to see that these are real regular folks using this, and we are high functioning and highly successful people. And so that's where I would like to see this go in general. And so I want to go ahead and kick it off into the sex part. Can we talk about that?
Let's get into it.
Let's go get
that's
into
why
it.
we're here, right? That's why we're here. So personal experiences with cannabis and sex. Take a second. You don't have to give your hottest and your darkest. But I do know this. When it comes to personal experience with sex and cannabis, for me, I have not had multiple orgasms except for once, and that's when I was on cannabis, right? And I'm not talking about
Same.
literally ejaculating back to back. I'm talking about multiple, or like it's going. Okay, I still feel the sensation, and it's coming back again in waves on cannabis. I've been trying to do this without cannabis.
Bro, what was the strain? Do you remember the strain?
Next question.
I don't. This was in college. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I've been chasing this shit for like 20 to almost 20 years. So I definitely don't know, but it was probably some mid. It probably was some mid. I couldn't afford no high grade stuff, so it was probably some mid, and it was probably something. I don't know. I can't even guess that sativa or indica. Probably a hybrid.
Mm.
Um, so
But you don't know because you probably got it from the plug, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 All right.
So but I do remember what that was my first instance with multiple orgasms, and I was high as fuck. Well, not high as fuck, but I was high for sure. And
He was hot for sure.
I was high. I was high for sure. And so I wasn't a couch potato. You know what I mean? When you're locked in, I wasn't like that. And so I had the energy. So that's why I was like, I don't know if it was this strain versus that or maybe a mid, but I do know the results were very pleasurable. And I don't I don't know how to get back there anymore personally. I hear about other brothers doing it, but I can't do it. So that was mine.
Yeah.
What do y'all think about that?
Well, I just wish you knew the strain. I know that was a different day back then, so they might
It
not even be
was.
on the market anymore. But I can say that for me, um, I'm kind of new to the whole combining them type thing. So I was never, when I was younger, I was never a big cannabis person. It's probably in the last 5, 6 years I started becoming more of a regular cannabis user. And I will say that it definitely is the experience.
Yeah.
For me as a woman, um, it I can feel, especially if I'm using like edible, I can feel every single sensation, touch, detail, which for ladies is amazing, and it kind of like drives me. It literally drives me crazy in a good way. Um, and we'll talk about, I guess we'll probably get into it a little bit later. There's even specific strains that I found that will turn me on in different ways or work in different ways. And so that has been amazing. But I will definitely say that it enhances the experience. Like feel everything a whole lot more. Time slows down, so it feels like you're just there forever. I know that when I look at the clock, it's never really forever, but it just feels like the experience has lasted a long time. It makes the pleasure even more pleasurable. So it's definitely an enhancement to have those two paired together, for sure.
You know, I was just talking to somebody about the length of sex for women, which is a pleasurable amount of time. And I posted something earlier today. This chick was talking about I need it for 2 hours and some shit like that. And I'm just like, we're not trying to fuck for 2 hours. But if she had some cannabis, she probably wouldn't have had that same response. She probably been like, you know what, on weed, whatever, it's good because I'm in my body and I'm enjoying it. And so, yeah, you about to say something, Dr. Dorian? Looks like
I,
you had
I just the 2 hours thing just was like, you need it for 2 hours. It sounds like you need a new partner, but
right.
that's a different conversation. The same, maybe not 2 hours. And I'm not knocking anybody who prefers a longevity, but for you to say that's what you need, and if you haven't reached at least a climax in the 2 hours, something's wrong,
Right.
and you should call me. I'll help.
Agreed. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, it's funny you mentioned the multiple orgasm thing. Yeah, I I've that's probably happened to me once or twice, but whenever it has happened, it's been with cannabis. And the first sexual experience I can remember on cannabis, it was in college, and my partner at the time and myself, like we weren't big smokers, or partakers in cannabis in general. But the thing that I remember about that really opened my eyes was like it was a feeling of connection. So for me, I'm a person who, I'm big on energy and sensuality, and those are literally senses, you know what I'm saying, how feel and smell and all that stuff. And for me, especially with the right strain, the senses can become very, very heightened, you know what I mean, as well as the feeling of empathy. So then when that empathy increases, it feels like that energy exchange back and forth is just so much more meaningful. And it made for like real powerful sex. Like I'm talking about, I don't know about y'all. Sex for me has gotten better as I've gotten older, because you know what I'm saying? You know what you're doing, you know what I'm saying? And I remember having like, yo, this is ridiculous. Like I had not had that kind of sex as a young adult. I'm in my
Yeah.
20s at the time. You know what I'm saying? I don't remember having like that kind of experience because I had never felt that connection before. And the cannabis was able to provide that. But um it's consistent, with from partner to partner, even, like it makes a
Absolutely.
difference. Great
Absolutely
aphrodisiac.
agree.
Totally agree.
I agree. So we're talking about cannabis, and cannabis is really that umbrella, including what CBD,
Hmm.
hemp, all that other stuff. I think we were talking about earlier, um, oil. And so I haven't gotten clearance to use the name of some of the sex oils that I've used, but I haven't used cannabis infused. I have used CBD oil for sex. And I don't just, dab it on the places. I kind of just, I kind of use it like it's a, like I'm showering somebody with like champagne or something. Like it's everywhere.
Holy
Like
water.
yeah, hit them with the holy water, but it's the
Anoint
CBD holy
anoint them.
water, and it helps glisten. It keeps the skin moist. It keeps all that stuff going. But be careful, you might be slipping off of shit. But I do feel like it does help with the intimacy, the closeness of it. I'm not getting an increase in the pleasure from that like I do from THC and from weed.
Mhm.
What have you guys have you had any experiences with CBD um, and sex?
I haven't.
So the one big benefit, I think, with CBD. So for me, CBD is something that's a go-to for dealing with anxiety,
Sure.
whether it's just chronic anxiety or acutely I'm feeling kind of panicky or whatever. And a lot of times, like I mentioned before, like a lot of the issues that people have with sex are psychology based,
Yeah,
and so using CBD for me is it's a way to it doesn't enhance the pleasure of everything, but it can definitely enhance the mental state. It can give you a little bit more room so that you're not considering all those hangups and insecurities and things like that may stop you from really being present in the moment when it comes to sex. um and honestly, the risk you run for some people, especially, again, we're talking if you're cannabis naive, right? Like, if you take something with too much too much THC, or you take an edible that's just a bit too strong for you, that might make you so in it that has a psychogenic. CBD is not psychogenic, so it doesn't really change the way that you think. It doesn't change your perception, but THC absolutely does. And sometimes that can have the opposite effect on pleasure. It can
absolutely.
make people get too much into their heads. And a little known secret is that CBD is one of the antidotes for a racing mind, or a little bit of that paradoxical anxiety that you might get from smoking too much, from having too much THC. So cannabis, I mean, CBD in general, I think is good for it's mostly good for just kind of calming down the nerves, making you a little bit more present in the moment. Maybe it's a better tool for foreplay, than it is for actual pleasure. But very useful tool for sure.
And I wonder, with the anxiety and some of the other things that you were just listing and describing, would CBD be helpful for things like performance anxiety in bed, for the man, the woman, or whomever, that may help lead to better quality sex, or at least good enough sex, for whether it's solo or with another partner? Um, be worth looking into for sure.
Definitely try the
Absolutely.
one-to-one products though. They have the products, especially like with the edibles. I've done like the CBD, THC one-to-one edibles. Um, I tend not to use a lot of CBD because it relaxes me to the point where I'm asleep. So I don't
Yes,
use it.
yes, yes, yes.
So I don't use a
How,
lot of CBD because I don't have no problem sleeping by myself. So to give me something to help, I'm out of there. But I would think though, with that anxiety piece, if they were using that, it would make sure that it would kind of temper that high, like Dr. Josh was saying, but also it would give them that peace. It'd be that anxiolytic effect that they would need, where it would
Mhm.
cut down on some of that anxiety, that performance anxiety, so they can let go. I know I don't suffer from a lot of performance anxiety, but I will say that when I'm under the influence, I'm tend to do a lot more that I might not have done because I'm just completely out of my head. I'm not worried about what they're thinking, what I'm thinking. I'm a lot more adventurous when I am under the influence. So I can see that being helpful in that regard.
I'm
Nice.
glad you mentioned. If I just jump in, I'm glad you mentioned that about the CBD and putting you to sleep. So CBD, cannabidiol it's a great anxiolytic. It's a great anti-anxiety. But after a certain point, it will put you right to sleep. So for me,
Mhm.
I'm like 160-ish pounds. If I'm taking more than like 35 milligrams of CBD, I'm gonna need to find some place to lay down. You know what I mean? So and were you and I'm assuming you're talking about taking it systemically, like either orally, gummies,
That's
or
what I
consuming it
usually
that
do.
way.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
So definitely, like, for the listeners, it's important when you mess with the CBD, because people think like CBD, it doesn't make you, it's not psychogenic, it doesn't change the way you think or whatever. You could just take more and more and more, but nah, it'll lay you down if you take too much, for sure.
And know your dosing, like you just said. If I was to take 30, what you said you can handle, I'm asleep. Because sometimes I'll just do a 1-to-1 and it's 10-to-10. Done.
Uh,
Like you just have to kind of know yourself and kind of know what dose you can handle. But that CBD definitely, I mean, my eyes are heavy, heavy. I'm just go to sleep.
And a bit of a disclaimer. I'm not sure how true this is across the board, but uh, I was just reading the other day that if we take 50, is it milligrams or grams of CBD,
milligrams.
It's milligrams.
milligrams of CBD long term, that could lend itself to possible liver damage of some sort. And
Mm,
so science is really looking at CBD long term because there really isn't enough research on CBD long term if you take that high of a
true.
dosage. And so, we're all trying to figure this out, as the day goes on, and with limited
Yeah.
research on all this.
Right.
So, it's just a weird thing for us all. But
Yeah.
I do think CBD does help with quality sex.
Yeah.
I mean, or cannabis, just the whole umbrella. It helps with it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely.
So, looking at the consumption and the levels, uh, where do you think can improve sex? Is it high dosage versus low dosage? What do you think? Your personal experiences of what you've kind of worked people through when it comes to cannabis?
I tend to go toward the lowest dose possible, the lowest effective dose.
Sure.
One, just because long term you're starting to build up a tolerance anyway, and so I'm always going for the lowest effective dose. And I've noticed that I'm able to be more present, but still get the same benefits if I do a lower dose. So I very rarely am going to go over 10 or 15 milligrams if I'm taking it in like an oral edible form. If I take anything more than that, I'm usually not any good to function
Right.
sex wise because so again, it takes knowing yourself and knowing your body and knowing how to process it. And also, one thing for those who are cannabis, just want to do a little disclaimer about edibles. I don't think this is said enough. You have to respect edibles. If you do not respect edibles, an edible will teach you who's boss. Okay. With that being said,
It's happened
and
to
I'm
all of us at
That's
one
right.
point or
yeah, I'm
another.
speaking from 100% experience. So with that being said, the lower the dose to start, the better. And I always
Mhm.
tell my patients, not that I give them dosage, but I give them recommendations because I can't dose out marijuana. It is illegal to do that. But as a recommendation, I say the lower the dose, the better. So if you can do
Right.
5-10 milligrams, waiting out, it lasts a long time, but it takes a long time to kick in. So I say wait an hour and a half and see if you have any effect before you decide to take more. Because if you don't, you're like, oh, I don't feel that. That's how people get it every time. Oh, I don't feel that that brownie was nothing or that piece of candy was nothing. I'm gonna take another one because you didn't give it the time. It has a long onset, and then next thing you know, you're 3 or 4 pieces of candy or brownies in, and then when it kicks in, you're off your tail. You are like Pluto for the next 3 days. So please just the lowest dose possible and go from there, and then build. Like respect the edible. Just respect the edible.
That's right.
Just that's my
Respect
disclaimer.
the edibles. Put that on a T-shirt or make a hashtag or something. Because
Yes.
Oh, which reminds me, you guys got to give me your shirt sizes so I can send you a compassion shirt and some thank you
I
notes.
I want a compassion shirt. I love the logo.
Me too.
Appreciate it, sir. Appreciate it.
That was clever. That was
But yeah, so
clever.
definitely lower the dose. For me, it's a lower dose, just so you're in the moment, but you still get the benefits. And now smoking is kind of harder to dose out, right?
Yeah,
But I don't smoke back to back to back. It usually, and for the strains that I've used specifically, like I'm smoking this specifically for sex, like not just because I'm smoking, but I'm smoking this for my sex tonight. When I have those strains, I don't need much. There's a couple that I found that are very. As soon as I smoke it, I'll know that that's what I smoked. If no one told me that's what I smoked, if I smoke it, my body tells me that's what I smoked. Um,
that's right.
I can tell. So it's hard to kind of say the dosing, but again, I think the lower the better. Is how I go.
I totally agree. Um, so if you're dealing with okay, so two things to consider, right? Like if we're talking about dosage, obviously if you're taking an edible, you know exactly how much you're getting milligram wise. But then as far as like if you want to consume the flower, you it's a little bit harder to gauge the exact amount that you're getting, but based on the THC percentage and the CBD percentage in that strain, you gotta have an idea of what kind of effects it's gonna have for you. I totally agree. The lower the better. For sexual pleasure specifically, I got a couple of strains that I like, but they're all low THC strains. And when I say low, it's all relative, right? But like I'm talking like 16-17%, less than that maybe. It's hard it's hard to find because most of the strains now are bred to be in the 20s and high teens. But the indica strains tend to be for most people a little more like they're the same reason they're better for pain relief is the same reason they're better for pleasure. It's more of that body sensation. And for me, what I found is that a lot of the indica strains or the indica leaning hybrids, they trigger this like they trigger my hedonistic tendencies. Like I get the munchies with the indicas. I want sexy time with the indicas or the indica leaning hybrids and things like that. So a nice low dose, or even there are a few strains that um, Dr. Richardson spoke about the 1-to-1 ratio. There's a few strains out there. They're not easy to find. There's just a few strains of flower that are actually around a 1-to-1 ratio. Harlequin is one of them. That's a good one. So you get the benefit that it doesn't. It does when you take CBD and THC in equal ratios, you don't have such a strong psychogenic effect. So you can still be very present, but you can still get the benefits of the mood being uplifted and the anxiety being decreased and things like that. But you're still very present and not feeling detached. So if you're like a cannabis naive person, smoking a strain or consuming a strain that's based off of like Harlequin, for example, is a good look. It's a good place to start.
Nice. We were talking, backstage about sex pot, and sex pot, just like you said, Josh, is I think it's how potent it is. I think it's like at 15% THC or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think it was, I think it's an indica. I'm not sure, but in mind, the whole focus of it was not to get people overly zooted, to help
hmm
people get in their bodies and to
It
enjoy
is.
and allow people to enjoy and have enough energy to enjoy it. Right? You're so high, you don't remember, or you're not really aware of how good this feels. You won't get that with those low dosages. And so that was the idea with sex pot, and I have yet to try it. I've just tried off the street stuff, hybrids and stuff like that have been mid to low. I haven't really had anything that was extremely high, that can improve sex in dosage. Everything really is a mid or close to it, I guess, Reggie. And so I think it does improve sex. It does get you to the point where um, you are energized. You are willing to try new things. You're willing to initiate. and you are willing to appreciate how it feels, and it's not just for a performance. You're really going, you're fucking for you and the other person a lot of times when you're doing this, especially if there's a heightened trust level there. And so I do think, just like the both of you have said, that cannabis can improve sex. You do have to respect it, um, and not go overboard. But we're going to go ahead and start closing out. So I have a closeout question. If you could create your magical cannabis strain, we just named off a few strains here today. But if you could create your magical cannabis strain for sex, what's in that bad boy? And what would it have you do?
So, okay. That's something you should have
So
told us before we got on here.
I know. I'm
You
sorry.
know.
Sorry. Did I
I was
stop
about
you with
to
that?
say,
I
You
that
did. I
saw
is,
did
how
it.
he
that
snuck the
is,
last part in, and what would you do? What did it make you do?
What would
yeah, I'm
what would
like,
you what
that's
would you want? I'm gonna give you a second. My bad, y'all. I'm gonna give you a second because I'm off the top of the dome. I'm gonna try to do mine because I was just thinking as we
so,
were talking, what would be the magical strain? And I've tried to white label some strains before, and I think it was New York sour diesel I was gonna do because it was kind of along the lines of sour dream and sex pot. It was along the lines of that. And so that will help you get energized. It won't have you to have, it won't keep you couch locked. Um, and it also, the terpenes in it, I hear well, the flavors that people choose really like taste, it tastes good. It tastes like there's a fruity flavor and some other earthy flavors in there as far as, how it tastes on your palate. And so I'm going for something. My magical weed is gonna be along the lines of sex pot and New York sour diesel, to where I'm energized a little bit. Uh, I'm going to take fun risks. I don't want to be vanilla in the bed when I'm when I'm smoking some cannabis. I want to be all kinds of kinky and shit, right? And so my magical strain is going to have me energized, wide open to my partner, but it's also going to smell and taste good. And so that's just my magical strain. I haven't given it a name, but I'm gonna just call it the Boris Chestnut. That's what I'm gonna call it, mother. So we're gonna go with that.
And you said you don't want to be vanilla, right? So
Right.
what do you want it to unlock then, Boris?
Oh, great question. So I wanted to unlock the partners talking a lot of shit like, oh, we're anticipating the situation before we even took the clothes off. There's the anticipation there that increases your desire, right? So we're talking shit. Oh, the last time we fucked, we weren't on no weed, and this is what you got. But I got that Boris Chestnut today. I'm finna tear your ass up. This is what we about to do. I ain't finna just hit it from the back. I'm finna do all these other kind of modified positions from the back and on your side. And while you're riding, I need your hands like this. I need to grab your hair like that. And matter of fact, we bought the swing. I want to try the swing today. Now that we on this shit, and I want to go from there, just trying other stuff. And so I did catch you off guard, and I apologize.
Nah, it's all
That was
good.
just off the top of the dome. But
okay.
I
I
really
thought
want
you
to know
wanted us
from
to
you
get back
all,
into the science of it.
huh?
I thought you were saying like the science of like the actual weed. I was like, I don't
Oh,
know,
oh
but
no,
I
no,
can
no,
I can do weed. What
no.
you just did, I can
Yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Because I will say that one of my favorite strains that I've used so far, I don't know if you've tried the Granddaddy Purple.
Oh, Granddaddy
Um,
Perp, let's go.
Oh,
Tell us about it.
yes, especially
come on now, preach.
women. So I've tried a few different strains, but this one as a woman, I mean, if I take a puff, I know that I smoked it because she wakes all the way up like, hey, what was that? Um, it's great for arousal, and so I want something like that, something that's going to make me a lot more sensitive to touch and to feelings, and kind of put me in this new realm, kind of like that energetic thing that Dr. Josh was talking about earlier. So my strain would have all of those components, and it would take away, it would shut down, not take away, it would shut down my thoughts so that I can just perform without thought. So I can do all the, no, like you said, no restrictions, nothing vanilla. I'm everything. So that would be, for me, that would be look for in a strain. that sensation, that arousal. For women, it's really important because it takes us a lot longer to reach our peak. So if we do something that already gets us aroused, it's more likely to be able to reach our peak over and over and over again because we're already at the peak before we started. It's like foreplay without foreplay. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Ladies, Rare Daddy Purple, try it. Amazing. Um, it's amazing. But so I want my weed to kind of give me that arousal and then calm that anxiety, quiet my thoughts, and take off all restrictions.
I love it. What about you, Josh?
Granddaddy Pert was definitely that was one of the ones that I highlighted that I wanted to talk about. So I'm glad that you mentioned it. So I'm gonna one of my other go-to strains is called papaya cake. This is one of those indica leaning. So it checks a lot of boxes. It's an indica leaning hybrid that has a mild amount of THC most of the time in the mid to high teens. And to get into it a little bit more scientifically, um, it's all about the terpene profile, actually, right? Like, so there's a terpene called linalool that is it's a big terpene in lavender. So lavender oil, it's lavender's purple. Lavender oil has a certain aroma. It's relaxing. The linalool in the purple strains of cannabis flower give you some of those same sensations. So I like those purple, um, mid THC indica leaning hybrids, that can help you remain energetic and creative, but aren't so stimulating that it's got your mind racing and you're like, what if this, what if that, all, triggering all those insecurities and everything. So like Dr. Richardson says, something that's going to kind of get you out of your mind and into your body. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's what I like, because I like the shit talking too, but I like to give it, and I like to hear it back, and I like to get creative and experimental. And I see something over there that looks like we could use. I'm bringing, you know what I'm saying? Like let's do it all. Like let's do whatever. You know, just don't want to traumatize the kids. But
Lock the door and knock next time.
yeah.
They got to
That's your
learn.
bad. You learn to knock. Nah, but yeah, shoot, you got me. I mean, the dispensaries are probably closed over here, but you got me wanting to go buy some Granddaddy Perp right now. Being real.
Listen, I'm sitting here looking at it like, man, it's a good one.
Well,
Get you straight to
look,
demon time.
how can we reach you
It's a
all?
good one.
What are your plugs? What are your handles? How can we reach you all after this conversation?
So on Instagram, I'm at Dorian Richardson, N as in Nancy, M as in Michael, D as in Dorian. So Dorian Richardson, NMD. And then on Facebook, I'm Dorian Richardson, ND, no M in the middle. I used to be like that on Instagram too, but then there was haters in the world and they shut me down, so I had to restart.
Man,
So those are my handles: Dorian Richardson ND and Dorian Richardson NMD, and then my website is just DorianRichardsonND.com.
So you can reach me. You can find me on Instagram at Dr. JW Moore. That's DRJW Moore. You can find me on Clubhouse. I don't even know what my name is. I think you can just search Joshua Moore on Clubhouse, or it's actually Dr. Joshua Moore on Clubhouse. I'm in there all the time, usually in the poly groups, or the grown and sexy sort of groups, a bunch of other millennials talking shit. And website is coming soon. So I have a holistic concierge style practice, that's completely mobile. And we deal with cannabis. We deal with helping people get better sleep, helping people work on their relationships. And it's called Holistic Theory. So the website's not live yet, but Holistic Theory will be launching soon. So look out for it.
beautiful. And thank you all for tuning in to Compassion. I'm going to leave their handles in the posts that you'll see here in the future. Uh, Love y'all. Continue to tune in for more of these talks. We'll see it develop and grow a long time. And until next time, y'all have a nice night.
Bye.